This is the Kindness Matters podcast, a space for stories that inspire, challenge, and bring us a little closer together. If you've been looking for a reminder of the good in people, you're in the right place, because kindness matters, and so do you. It's kindness we are. Hey, hello, and welcome everybody to the Kindness Matters podcast. I am your host, Mike Rathbun. Just thank you for showing up today, for taking an interest in kindness, of course, but also this podcast. It means a lot to me because we all have so many hours in the day, right? And the fact that you chose a half of one of those hours to listen in to this podcast means the world to me, and I appreciate it, and I thank you. If there's anything you hear in this podcast that that strikes you or sticks with you, feel free to share it with your friends, family, strangers on the street, whatever the case may be. I have a fantastic show today for you. My guest today is John Nepper. He is a speaker, educator, and leadership trainer with more than 35 years of experience helping people build stronger human connections. He was honored as the Kenosha Unified Schools Teacher of the Year and is the creator of the Story Formula for Extraordinary Retention, a framework that helps leaders build trust and listen more deeply and create workplaces where people feel valued and heard. His work centers on a simple but powerful idea: everyone's story matters. Today we'll be talking about kindness and leadership and his new Be Someone for Someone initiative, which encourages each of us to show up intentionally in the lives of others. John, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's as we both prepare for nasty weather, right?
That's right.
Get this out of the way. When you were teaching, you were teaching music, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
As a band director.
Right. How did that prepare you to understand the rhythm of a human conversation?
First of all, I love that phrase, rhythm of a conversation.
It is,
Here's the
right?
thing. When I was teaching music, I was teaching band, but I often was frustrated with seeing other people either work with my kids or others where it was totally about the music and not about the relationship of the conductor to the kids who were making the music. So for me, it was always, can I create relationships and connections with my musicians in such a way that helps us make music better together? And that really is where that all came from. Because it had to be about building trust with them. Like if they didn't trust me to have their best interest, how would they perform to the level that we were aspiring to?
Right, for sure. Because, yeah, I mean, it's hard enough to keep kids engaged, right?
Yes, it
Much
is.
less, but it's a lot easier when you have a relationship with them.
Yes, it is much easier.
Yeah. Okay, now ask you about something else. I'm seeing a lot in my social media feeds, and I've been out of the corporate world for a long time. So I'm not necessarily in tune with that, but I'm seeing a lot LinkedIn and what have you about stories and storytelling and that sort of thing. Simon Sinek, I think, talks a lot about it, and Neil Ford. I love his content. How does the story formula move a conversation from simple small talk to a deep, meaningful connection? And why is that story so important in leadership?
Well, I think that's a great question. all of our conversations, I think, have to start with small talk. Sometimes that gets a bum rap. It's like, well, I don't do small talk. I don't like small talk. And I'm thinking, if you don't do small talk, how are you going to have a chance to move it to a deeper level? Because that's
Right.
where it starts. But if people are intentional about taking it beyond that, if they're not, it's going to be a conversation in the hall by the printer on a Zoom meeting that only lasts a minute because
Yeah.
there's not an intention to move it into something deeper. But the key thing I think is, can we really pay attention, listen, and ask questions that are going to invite more conversation? And that's really one of the huge pieces of the story formula. It it's the story formula for extraordinary retention, but it's also the story formula for outstanding, extraordinary relationships. And so many times when I was working with other teachers, it was a conversation that was 3 minutes or less, but I learned so much in that 3 minutes because I was really paying attention, I was listening, and I would ask questions that would cause people to think, to share an idea, share something that was going on with their kids, that took the conversation down a level, that
Yeah.
below the surface. And
Yeah.
it's something that I think people feel like is really difficult, and I've experienced a lot in my conversation with people. They don't necessarily understand or know how, or feel it's important to do that. Um, and I'm the exact opposite. It's like, I wanna do the small talk to get us to talking about something that matters, not to me per se, but to you.
Right. For sure. And it seems kind of like a no-brainer, right? To be able to tell those stories, to build those relationships. But again, I'm just seeing it lately, maybe within the last year or two, I think. Is it a new concept in leadership?
I think the leaders who are successful have known that since the beginning of time. I
Yeah.
think that there's more attention to it because they're not holding on to their good people. You know, when people feel like they're valued for what they do, they don't leave. There's a story that I know personally of someone who worked at Microsoft, was having a difficulty with someone that she was working with. Went to the leadership, and it was she found that they were listening, that they were concerned, that they really took in what she was saying, and they followed up and made a difference, such that she was willing to stay because she felt like they really believed her. So her trust level went up because they paid attention. And,
Right.
they're calling it heart-centered leadership. I think that's always been there. I do think there's more focus on it, but I do think there's a real need for leaders to understand how to do that. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's that hard, except I think it takes practice.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I was gonna say, can that even be taught? But no, you're doing it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I that's the thing too. One of your other questions further down I noticed was about empathy. Can it be taught, or is it just something we have? Um, I I celebrate my mom who taught me that. She was a teacher, but I learned from her. So can it be taught? I know it can be taught. And I don't I think it's more about being open to it and being intentional about it instead of expecting it to happen naturally. Because, yes, there's a percentage of people who have that natural empathy, but
Yeah.
I very strongly believe that we can learn that.
Yeah. My mom drilled that into me when I was a kid. It's like I got Bambi quotes a lot. I'm like, Thumper, you know, mama always says if you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all.
That's right. Ah, the wisdom of the Bambi movie.
Yeah, it was the time period that I grew up in, I guess. I don't know that Bambi was new. I don't even know when that came out. Doesn't matter. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think drilling it in sounds kind of like a negative connotation, but it's not a bad thing if you can teach kids, do you think they carry the well, you're a good example of that. They carry it with them into adulthood, right? Empathy?
I absolutely think they do. You know, and I look to my own daughters as well. That was something that we talked about as parents with them, and I see them putting that into practice so often with the people that they relate to. One of my daughters works at a public library in town here, and
Mhm.
she's always talking about people who come up to her with questions, concerns, and I know, not just from hearing her talk about it, but I know she is there being that person for them in the moment, and I know they appreciate it because they come back and tell her. That's the beautiful thing about it, when people
Yeah,
come back and say, "Man, you made my day." Uh, and they often don't, because we don't always get the chance to know. Like, when I was teaching, I didn't always get the chance to know that I had made a difference somehow or made a connection until sometimes they come back. There's kind of a fun story. My mom had a tree trimming party every year, and I got a phone call. I didn't live there anymore, but a
okay.
former student of mine had that phone number as my contact number. I hadn't seen him for 15 years, and
Oh,
he
wow.
called up just to say, "Man, I just wanted to tell you how much difference you made in my life." Eh, that was golden and totally unexpected, but
Yeah.
some evidence that there was impact there.
Yeah. I love when that happens, right?
Mhm.
And it doesn't happen all the time. It's not an everyday thing, but when it does, boy, it just kinda yeah. So and we had talked about a little bit about difficult conversations, right? Um, what's the number one reason you found that people avoid conversations that matter? And how can we be brave enough to push past that fear? Because it can be hard to have a difficult conversation, right?
It can, and I there's several reasons. I don't know if I can pinpoint one, but first of all, I think people might feel it's not their business. Maybe they don't have time. There's often a fear of, "I don't know what to say."
Yeah.
Um, and it can be risky to step into a conversation where you don't, especially if it's a difficult conversation. But here's the thing too, like, if people are like, if I find myself wondering, or other people do, what's going on with this person, and they
Yeah.
hesitate to step into that conversation, um, it could be the conversation, like I say, that makes their day, but it could also be that conversation that saves their life. We don't know that, but that fear of, "I don't know what to say, I don't have the time." The one thing that people often say too is, "It's not my job." And this one is a conversation killer, is, "I don't care." That's a whole different kind of conversation. Uh, but even the one that says, "It's not my job," if you're a leader in an organization and you wanna keep your best people, it really is your job.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of times during conversations like that, you're going to you're going to run into silence, right? Um, how can we be better at being fully present when someone is sharing something vulnerable, and when you're having that difficult conversation, and the silence can kind of kill that conversation, right? So how can we be better at being present?
That's a great question, and I think the silence can enhance that conversation,
Oh,
especially,
okay,
so first of all, like, if I'm listening to somebody, what I talk about is, how do I invite somebody into my listening? Not that I'm the one talking, I'm the one
right,
listening. And the tendency is for people to wanna jump in and say, "I know exactly how you feel. I have a story that's just like yours." And no, we don't. We don't know. And it's oftentimes people feel the need to fill it with their story, but that puts the light back on me, instead
right,
of my voice being heard the least amount of time in the conversation, which I think is critical.
yeah,
So that silence, I I was with a woman, we were dating, I asked her a question, she didn't answer right away. And I something said, "Just wait." And so really I waited for what seemed like minutes. And I
yeah,
thought either she had fallen asleep or she forgot the question, she answered me, and she it was pivotal in our relationship because I understood that I needed to wait for her to, because it allows people to figure out what they wanna say, formulate their opinions, their ideas. It also what they're feeling, but it also gives them a chance to decide how much they trust you. And I think that's the critical piece right there.
Okay. So the silence is not a conversation killer. You just have to wait for it because it may be something important.
Yes, I think so. And so as a teacher, I would ask a question to my students, and if they didn't answer in a second or two, I was always on to the next kid. So
Okay.
someone would raise their hand, the person over here didn't answer right away, and I would go over to the next student. Well, that took any opportunity for that other student to formulate their answer. And so I had to really learn to wait and let that question sit there. It does cause some discomfort because people look away, they don't wanna make eye contact, they don't, "Please don't call on me."
Yeah.
But letting that question sit gave them the chance to hear their own voice, which I think is extremely important. Um, and it's that idea too that, um, like if you sing the Jeopardy theme,
Yeah.
half of the theme is 15 seconds. So I'll have audiences kinda sing it in their head, and it feels like it's an hour, or it feels like it's a
Yeah.
eternity.
It's a really long
And
song in my head.
yeah, and so I'll say, "So, when's the last time you waited 15 seconds for someone to answer?" And most people can't
Yeah.
recall a time because we
I,
get uncomfortable in that silence.
yeah. Yeah. We do. But I think if you wait for it, like everything else in the world, right? If you wait for it,
Uh,
good
exactly.
stuff will
Yeah,
come.
that's right.
Yeah. Um, and you had talked about, okay, you mentioned that empathy in the workplace has reached critical mass. And oh, that was what you were talking about earlier. I should stop
Mhm.
listening. I should stop reading my questions. Oh, you said, is empathy something that can be taught? Yes. We've answered, asked and answered.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, the thing about empathy from leader to employee or uh, from colleague to colleague, again, it extends trust, and
Right.
so maybe that beginning level trust is just a starting point, but every time there's that chance to show empathy and come back to a conversation and say, "Hey, you told me your son's got the flu. How's he doing?" That level of trust keeps going up, and I think that's crucial. And,
Yeah.
and that's the hard thing too. I mean, if you're a leader in an organization where you have 250 people, that's a lot. How do you touch with those 250 people or 2,500 or 10,000? Well, you
Right.
can't. But I went to Michigan State for college, and there's 45,000 people there.
Yeah.
In the music department, there were 900. In the band department, there were 250, which I was in. In the trombone department, there were 16. Well, what if, as a leader, you connected with someone for a 3-minute conversation or less? 16 people.
Yeah.
That's like less than 50 minutes of your time over the course of the week. And does that help create those connections? It absolutely does. The problem is most people don't find that time. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't. I don't know that
Yeah.
I can say most, a lot of people don't.
But definitely a lot easier to connect with 16 than 10,000, right?
Yes. Mhm.
And you had mentioned something in leadership, organization. We were talking about that, but and again, it's been a long time since I have been in the corporate world. But one of the things that always bugged me as a worker was the us versus them mentality between leadership and staff. It was, yeah, you know, it was always such a scary thing to go into the C-suite, right? Um, for whatever reason. What when you have that kind of mentality and when you want to fix that, the trust that may have been broken there, what's the quickest way that a leader can rebuild that trust in that kind of situation?
Yeah, we've mentioned that already. I think the quickest way is
Mhm.
for a leader to, like I said before, invite people into his listening and not
Yeah,
say anything, or ask questions that are other person questions rather than getting my point across. Uh, I I did a presentation about 2 weeks ago, and someone talked to me afterwards saying, "Well, I find when I if they aren't getting my point, that I say, I'm not making myself clear." And I said to him, "That's not the whole point of this program or this idea. The idea is that you put the question out there to them and let them talk and really find out." You know, so if there's a broken trust between a leader and an employee, I
yeah,
want to know what caused it. I want to find out what I can do to, if it's a circumstance that really I want to repair that relationship, it's not about what I think. It's
right.
about what they think, or what they need. And sometimes it's just that they need to be heard. Like I
Yeah,
came to you with this issue and you totally blew me away. You didn't listen to, you blew me off. So can I go back and say, listen, I think there's something here. I wasn't listening to you. Tell me what you need. Tell me what's important to you. How can I
yeah.
make this better?
We've had, and you've mentioned it a couple times during the conversation, but you've got a mantra, and it's not about me. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that's
Hmm.
a fascinating and it's a very humble way to go about it. But I think it's also crucial to what we're talking about here.
I think it is too. It's again being able to set aside my agenda. We're in conversation, someone's saying something, it's like, ooh, but they need to know my point.
Yeah,
No, they don't. So
they
again,
don't.
if I can remember, it's not about me. In this idea that we're connecting, we're being there for somebody, we're being present, we're trying to build trust. It's not about me. And
Right.
um, that urge to fix is so strong. I am a recovering fixer. It got me into a lot of trouble, Mike.
I'm still
It's
doing it.
like,
I'm not even recovering it.
it's that idea. Well, if you just did this, that makes it about me. Like,
Yeah,
here's my idea. If you just took my idea, things would be so much better. But when I can come to that mantra and say, it's not about me, tell me
yeah,
what would make this better for you. Tell me how we can improve what we're doing. It totally, I think it puts them in a space where they're going to be willing to say things where otherwise, if it's about me, they're going to sense that and they're just going to clam up. They're going to bury their head in the sand. They're going to say, he's not going to listen. She's not going to listen. Why should I bother? And
yeah.
that makes it even harder to establish trust down the road because they already have their defenses up.
Right, right. They've already probably made up their mind that you're closed-minded or un unwilling to bend or whatever the case may be. So okay, talk to me about be someone for someone because I think this is really fascinating. What was the light bulb moment that made you realize that this was the next step in your mission?
I I love that question because it wasn't a moment. It kind of was and kind of wasn't. First of all, it's like all of these things in my life have been funneling down, funneling down, funneling down to this point where I have I think I've always been about connection and how important it is.
Yeah,
I have a friend who's a cardiologist who he was a teaching doctor. He would tell his medical students, if you want to be a better doctor, a better nurse, a better health professional, you have to learn your patient's stories. And when he told me that, that was kind of the turning point. Like I said, oh, as a teacher, if I want to be a better teacher, I have to learn my students' stories. If I want to be a better leader, I have to learn my employees' stories or my
Right.
organization, what's going on, because then again, it's not about me, it's about them. And I just thought that was brilliant. And it really was it that has been my rock. Like, that's why I think learning people's stories is so important. And I also think, Mike, it's not the big stories we learn about, the bar mitzvah, the
Right.
wedding, the anniversary, the retirement, the birth of a child. People talk about those.
Sure.
It's the stories that people are carrying with them on their shoulders every day into the workplace, into our schools, into our churches, all those places where they come carrying that story from last night at the dinner table or this morning on the way to dropping the kids off to school.
Yeah.
And when we can notice that they're carrying something, stepping into that conversation, even though you don't know what to say or you don't think it's your business or you don't have time, um, I think it allows them to unburden even
Sure.
for even for a short amount of time to kind of take that off and say, "Ooh, I don't have to carry that." And I also think too, that's when we see people with challenges and struggles and difficulties, that's really important to step in and be someone for someone. And what about the times when someone is dying to tell you about the success they had, the thing they want to celebrate, the wonderful news that they just got, but they feel like nobody's going to listen to them? So it's not just about the challenges, it's about the good things too, how we can step in, be someone for someone in a way that's going to unburden them or feel like someone shared their interest and really took an interest in them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So how is this manifesting for you, to be someone for someone? Is it an initiative? Is it within your company? Is it
Uh, because I spent so much time in education, I think that's a place that I know students are carrying things. I know that it's far safer for them to say, "I'm fine," than to take a risk and share. Because it is a risk, because they don't know how that's gonna be received. It could be
Yeah.
scary. It's like, people are not gonna listen to me. So one of the places that I am speaking now is with students, just to let them know, that whole idea that I saw a statistic that said 1 in 4 students is not getting their emotional needs met. I think it's like 4 in 4 students. At
Yeah,
some time or another, most of us are not. Like I
right.
say, for that very reason that it's easier to say I'm fine. And I know I was as an 11-year-old, my parents were splitting up. It was a difficult divorce. Rather than telling people what I was going through, of course, I don't remember anybody asking. That's another part that was so weird about that. But it was
Right.
easier for me to say I'm fine than to it was the kind of thing my dad said he thought the divorce was hardest on me, and I said, "What are you talking about, Dad? I'm fine. I was fine." But
Yeah,
the truth is I wasn't. My
right.
emotional needs weren't being met. So can we do that? How can we do that? The thing I think is true, and the fact that you're doing this Kindness Matters podcast indicates that it's true too. There's good people out there doing good things. The thing that
Absolutely.
I'm hoping to do is create some sense of movement. Like, I like the word initiative too, but can this be a movement within your school? Can this be a movement within your culture of your organization so that people are more intentional about it? I think it starts with that question, or starts with the desire, maybe like, hey, I want to be someone for someone. And
Yeah,
then we have to make a decision like, yes, I can be. And then it becomes that affirmation that happens in the moment with the intention that says, I am someone for someone. So
yeah,
you wake up in the morning and go, okay, today I'm going to be someone for someone. And by setting the intention out there,
yeah,
it may not happen, but it's out there and you may not know if it happens or not. Sometimes it's as small a thing as holding the door open for somebody. But
yes.
the mindset says, I'm going to be there for someone.
Yeah. Yeah, and that sets the tone for the whole day, right?
It
And
does.
even if no situation presents itself where you can actually be someone for someone, you're ready if it does, right?
Yeah. And I just thought of this as we're talking. It may not be a situation where I'm someone for someone else. Then I could be that someone for myself. Maybe I could stand in that sense of, yeah, I have to put on my own mask before I can, help others out. Maybe
Yes.
it's about being someone for myself as well.
Yeah. And I mean, when you look at the ripple effect of, what can I call it, a movement now? This movement, um, what is the ultimate world that you're trying to create through Be Someone for Someone? And that's kind of a big question. I apologize.
Yeah, it is. So I've had a mission for a long time to create a joyful world by maximizing the best of human potential. And so for me, that mission is never going to be complete. But if it's that, like you said, that whole ripple effect where we drop that pebble in the pond and it might ripple out from one person from me to somebody else. But then if we go and do that each to another person, well, now it's four, and then it's
Right.
eight, and then it's 16. And so can it be something where I think my goal, my hope is that it can be something, could it be worldwide? Sure, that'd be amazing. Will it be?
That would be
I don't
fantastic.
honestly know that, but it doesn't stop me from wanting to try that. But can we do that in our own kind of our own subcultures first, our own microcosm first, um, within my band program, within uh, whatever grade level it is at school, whatever within the teaching staff, within your managerial staff, your leadership, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Can you create that be someone for someone movement within your own structure, your own boundaries,
Yeah.
yeah, your own structure? Yeah.
John, I so appreciate what you're doing here and in the world, and the the work that you're doing with your see, this is the part I'll have to edit. Um, with your speaking engagements and your mentoring, and of course the Be Someone for Someone. I wish you all of the luck in the world, and I know you're gonna be great. This will go global. You'll make it go global.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I appreciate you taking the time to be on this little tiny podcast today. It means the world to me. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Human first, before the names, before the labels.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us for today's episode of the Kindness Matters podcast with my guest, John Nepper. I really appreciate you tuning in and being a part of this kindness community that we're building. If you liked what you heard, leave a quick review or a comment. It really helps others find this show. And it means a lot to me personally as well. And hey, if you can't support us financially, that's totally okay. The best way you can support the show is to go out and do one random act of kindness for a stranger today. But if you are in a position to help us grow, you can make a one-time gift or join one of our monthly supporter tiers over on Buy Me a Coffee. The link, along with the link for my merch and the book, are in the show notes, and you can find it all there. We'll be back again next week with another new episode. But until then, remember, kindness matters, and so do you.
The same song, 'cause we're human first. Human first.